Because the 2 sessions has just finished, and we have some rather terrible news, to be honest. Do you want to do the rundown?
Yes.
Who do we have here?
This is Li Keqiang. He's the premier of the State Council PRC. So basically, he's like one of the top dogs, we could say.
Now, look, as far as like Communist Party members are concerned, he's one of the better ones.
Yeah. Li Keqiang, I never will try or celebrate any CCP official because I know what it takes to get there.
You just got to be the worst of the worst. In order to rise to the top of that organization, you have to be ruthless.
Yes. However, it doesn't mean that some of these horrible people can have some decent policies that they try to instate.
Sure.
So Li Keqiang, the reason that he is good, in air quotes, or has some good policies is that he has really tried to make honesty a bit of a policy in the CCP. Yeah. At least some of the poverty alleviation stuff.
Yeah, he actually came out and he was the one that said, look, yeah, it's great and all that like we've lifted people out of poverty, but like 600 million Chinese people still live way, way below the poverty line.
Yeah.
You know?
And when he said that...
Xi Jinping was like, you said what?
What? You what?
Yeah, it's like, you didn't read the memo? Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, so jokes aside, Li Keqiang, he was honest about some of the figures because they know, and what his statement proved was that when he said about half the population is still living in poverty, when you make that bold-faced claim, is it bald face?
It's bald, like
face.
When you don't have hair.
Right. You're a bald-ass face, and you make a claim.
Yes.
So when he made that bald-faced claim, Xi Jinping has already put out the narrative, or Xi Jinping's government's put out the narrative that poverty's been alleviated. Everyone's above the poverty line now.
Sure.
It's been eradicated. Like the extreme poverty line, has been eradicated. So when Li Keqiang says something like that, which isn't necessarily against the narrative, because he said in poverty, not extreme poverty, it still elicits a negative response to people say, oh, wow, we still have literally almost half the population living in poverty, right?
Yeah.
So he kind of upsets the narrative in that he's like, listen, guys, we're not first world yet. Let's chill out and try to figure this out, right?
Yeah, of course.
He's also done a couple. There's a couple of good instances where he's been a lot more transparent than Xi Jinping's leadership. He's more of a hangover of Li Keqiang's more of a hangover of what you would have seen under Jiang Zemin or Hu Jintao, which were not good leaders per se. The CCP is horrendous, right?
They're better than Xi.
Lesser of two evils, right? The framework for an evil government's always been there, but there were definitely a lesser of two evils. We're talking about Xi Jinping. So, unfortunately, the news today is that Li Keqiang in the 2 sessions has announced he is stepping down.
So that'll be the only real rivalry to Xi's power.
I would never call him a rival to Xi. He's never been a
balance.
Yeah. He was the only person that was publicly reining Xi Jinping in. He was like, come on back to reality, dude. We got to deal with actual problems instead of yes men everywhere telling us that everything's fine. And he was always pragmatic in that respect. Right.
Yeah, we figured out what Xi Jinping's hobbies are, by the way, and it's just pork. He's just pork. That's all he does. He just eats pork.
We're pretty sure we were trying to talk about this. Yeah. We're like, because some of the other leaders, they've always been shrouded in mystery, but like Mao Zedong loved swimming, you know.
Well, it's more like bobbing along in the water while flailing your limbs a little.
He loved being in water.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
And he loved poetry.
It's probably a good thing. It's the only time he ever got a bath. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he refused to use toothpaste. He used tea instead. That's why it's stained teeth. But Mao Zedong, he was very intelligent, and he loved poetry. Yeah. And he was a great calligrapher. He was actually a very good poet and calligrapher.
Sure.
Super switched on, smart guy, Mao Zedong.
You don't rise up to, slaughter your people unless you have smarts.
Of course.
Well, I mean, you got Pol Pot.
Yeah, you got Pol Pot. Pol Pot tried to use Maoist theory, but he couldn't understand it. He's like, all this stuff, the altruistic goals of Mao, he's like, reads those, he's like, I don't get that, but I know Mao slaughtered about millions of people. Let's just do that.
Yeah, let's just skip to that part. Forget the rest. Yeah.
Anyway, Mao loved floating at least.
Yeah.
But we were trying to figure out what Xi Jinping's hobbies are.
We looked it up, but apparently
it's soccer.
And there's no way it's soccer. This dude can't even walk up a flight of stairs.
I did see a clip of him kicking a ball pretty well.
Oh, pretty well?
But he rehearsed that one kick for the camera so many times.
There was probably so many takes.
Yeah.
And they only allowed the one that actually he made contact with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're pretty sure he just loves pork.
Yeah, that's all he does.
It's like a hobby.
Yeah, that's him.
He's like a connoisseur of
He's
pigs.
a pork connoisseur. Yeah, that's him. Porkman.
Now, he's a porkman.
Yeah.
Now, Li Keqiang, we want to say,
probably likes fish.
Yeah.
He looks like a fisherman.
He could have some
Yeah, I
fish.
think he likes fish.
Yeah, I like fish.
He kind of looks like a fish a little bit. He's
does
got
a
that
little
look to him.
Li Keqiang was at least pragmatic in his approach.
Yeah.
And he wasn't living in a fantasy virtual reality,
Yeah.
which Xi Jinping is. And then, unfortunately, we have to say goodbye to him because God knows what the guy is going to turn out to be who's going to replace Li Keqiang as premier. Because we were all excited when Xi Jinping got into power.
Yeah.
Everyone thought that he was going to be even more liberal than the past two leaders. He was going to bring out more change and to get closer to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And we were all duped. So
Nope. Totally duped.
God knows.
Absolutely. So.